I think a materialist approach to things is very, very consistent with my experience in Christian social justice.
I feel like the deeper I get into anarchist practice, the deeper my faith is getting at the same time.
I would hope that, securing means of life for all would be something all people of faith would say, oh yes, that's at the basis of what we believe.
Those who are most marginalized know the most about the true, the good, and the beautiful.
To me, it's less that I think building class solidarity is a bad thing, as much as it seems like if you don't attend to things like anti-Black racism, that's always going to get in the way of building class solidarity, actually.
And when you go back, you find that a lot of revolutionary grassroots participatory movements, the precursors to what you could call the barrio assemblies and these grassroots neighborhood organizations, a lot of these were sponsored by the church.
What does it mean to say that the Christian tradition is internally contradictory and there are antagonisms there and you're always being faithful to some aspects and betraying other aspects?
Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm Dean Detloff. I'm a PhD student at the Institute for Christian Studies in Toronto.
I'm Matt Bernico. I teach media studies at Greenville University in Greenville, Illinois.
This week on the show, we're talking with Hye Sung Gehring, who is a really awesome, amazing Christian activist and organizer, and we had him on the show with Catherine from the Friendly Anarchism podcast a little while back. And at that time, we were talking about a retreat that they were working with some other folks to put together, and the retreat happened over May Day, and we got a little bit of a report back and follow-up from Hye Sung this week. So lots of really good thoughts about not just the retreat, but also Christianity and the left and how they should relate, and some really cool, I guess, like phrasing and just helpful metaphors for us, I think. But before we do that, I hear that we have an iTunes review.
Yeah, you know it. All right, iTunes review, 5 to 5 stars. The title is called Religious Leftist Podcast. Not wrong there. Good description.
Mm-hmm. Extremely accurate.
Right. Yeah, this user writes, join the insurrectionary crusade for the establishment of the commune of God. These guys are ready to wage people's war against the conservatives who think they have a monopoly on religion and spirituality. Solidarity, comrades, solidarity. Raised fist, black flag, red flag, prayer hands. Those are the emojis.
No, that's just in text.
That's just in text. They wrote those words. Really weird. That's cool. Good. I mean, these. Yeah. I think that's overstating how cool we are, actually. But I'll take it. But I'll take that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I don't know that I'm ready to start a people's war, but I am ready to talk about a few of them.
Yeah, I would definitely give some money to a GoFundMe for people's war.
Well, be careful because someone's going to email you about that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Insurrection against the conservative Christians and not letting them have the final say on what the faith could be, I think, is accurate and really good, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of themes that actually come out in this episode, so that's a really timely review.
Yep.
Cool. Well, without further ado, let's let Hye Sung teach us how to do that. Hey, so this week we're talking with Hye Sung about the Friendly Fire Collective and a really cool retreat that they did a while back. We talked to Hye Sung and Catherine, both members of that collective, a little while back before the retreat happened. So now we're kind of debriefing, I guess, and learning a little bit more about the collective and what Hye Sung's all about as well. So before we get into that, Hye Sung, what have you been up to this week or this, I guess today's Memorial Day, so on the old day off?
Well, I've been working a gross amount recently because I've been trying to make up that money, that time I spent on the retreat and all that money I didn't make. But now I have a day off. I have a day off for 3 days. So I have 3 days off. So I'm very pleased.
That's good.
A day off for 3 days is a really good way of putting it. Matt, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I actually forgot today was Memorial Day. So I had some plans for today, but then my son's daycare is closed, which is cool because now I just have to stay at home and watch cartoons with him. So that's what I've been doing. Watching cartoons.
Nice.
Yeah. I was also in Toronto a few days ago with you, and now I'm back and very sick. So that's sort of the weird trade-off. That once I come back to the United States, just all weighs back down on me, and I get really sick and sleepy. So that's bad, but it's cool. Been a good day off. Yeah, what have you been doing, Dean?
Well, I had a really good time hanging out with you, and then I also hung out with Sarah New the day after you left, so just had a real Christian socialist kind of week last week, and that was really fun. And then yesterday, my partner Emily graduated from like her first leg of yoga school, so I went to a party there, and I got a sound bath. Didn't know what that was, but somebody like plays this drum, and then they jingle these chimes, and then they jingle the chimes around like either part of like your head. It's pretty wild. But anyway, now all my sounds are clean, I guess. So
Ooh,
that was fun. That's
good. Yeah, cleaning out that aura, you know?
Yeah, I got those squeaky clean ears now.
Cool. That sounds like a really well timed, and I want to ask 1,000 more questions about it, but hey, let's not for right now.
Yeah, you should ask Emily, because I'm not equipped to answer any of them.
All right, well, that's cool. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, Hye Sung, we had you and Catherine on a while back to tell us about the Friendly Fire Collective, and it sounds really cool. And it happened. It all went down and transpired. And I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of a recap about like what the collective is about.
Yeah. Well, we actually had a meeting yesterday to figure out what the collective is about. So, I mean, we just started we had a number of people who were involved before, and we're just trying to, we organized to create this retreat basically with a desire to do things in the future and create momentum from that. But yesterday we had to sit down or a wire call with a bunch of people and who came to the retreat, and organizers who have been involved with Friendly Fire for a while, to just figure out what are we doing and what is this for again, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it was actually really good. And we kind of just we didn't really map out anything or goals or potential actions or anything, but we kind of just put some words to what our vision is. And we see ourselves as a network of individuals and cells and communities dedicated to the apocalyptic work. And apocalypse has been a big theme during the retreat. Argentina actually gave a sermon on the apocalypse, which was really powerful. And we had a pretty wild Pentecostal prayer meeting after that, honestly. And it was unexpected and really good. But so basically we see ourselves as just Christians, a pastoral presence accompanying the revolutionary left. And yeah, we're figuring out what that means and what that's going to look like. But so far, that's what we know.
That is the coolest thing. I really like that idea, a pastoral presence accompanying the left. That just feels like a really nice way of, I guess, setting up a relationship that doesn't assume an opposition, but also assumes a kind of maybe uniquely Christian contribution that doesn't reek of Christian supremacy or something. It's just hey, we're here to help in whatever ways that we can. Could you maybe do a little bit of a recap too, I guess, for people who hadn't listened to it, about just the retreat and what you guys were hoping to accomplish with it? And maybe we'll get into what actually happened, but kind of maybe a little bit about what you were planning and what you were kind of hoping would happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I kind of poured my whole self into this retreat, into organizing it, and at the same time, I'm I don't even know what I was expecting. I just wanted to get people together and get people who have these same convictions to know each other and connect and start brewing up something. And I don't know. And I mean, that's what we saw, and it was good. But yeah, I mean, it was really just a time to for people to I don't know. Everyone who came basically is pretty is a pretty involved organizer. Whether they're anarchists or Marxist-Leninists or whatever, they're all involved in their communities and stuff. And so everyone was pretty burnt out too. And so I also really just wanted the retreat to be a place where like they can like chill out and like be around people who are dealing with the same stuff, who are in the struggle together, and just kind of like, I don't know, doing the whole wounded healer thing and just being present to one another and like our own kind of grief and tiredness, but also in our like relentless like faith and hope and stuff. So yeah.
Well, do you think that you achieved some of those things? How did the actual retreat go?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, more it was like I remember in the last episode we talked about like healing, kind of just like in a space of healing, and that would be what the retreat is. And like I said that, or maybe Catherine said that, but I didn't really, or maybe you named it or something, but it wasn't something I really thought about too much. But that actually kind of ended up becoming like a major theme of the retreat. It was very, I don't know, it was a very honest and vulnerable and like tender atmosphere, and like I don't know, there was constantly people crying, to be honest, especially like white straight men, which felt very nice and it was like sweet to watch. But at the same time, yeah, there was a lot of people being real with what's been going on in their communities, and like their struggles, and like with the anti-fascist struggle, and seeing their friends get arrested and being arrested, and dealing with police brutality, and all these things came out, and also just like other things like, you know, their own personal issues, and people were there for each other with that. And it was it was a very healing space. And I mean, honestly, like beforehand, like my one prayer, and I even said it out loud, was just like I didn't want this to just be like a sentimental, like sweet time. And like, I was like, God, just like, don't make this like a Burning Man thing. Like, I don't want it just to be like I don't want it to just be like fun and sweet for the sake of that. Like, if it's gonna like have that, I want it to be powerful, and I want it to be meaningful, and I want it to actually lead to something. And I feel like it did, and I feel like it's going to, at least. I mean, you know, I feel like it's just planting seeds and stuff, but I feel like that space cleared a lot in people to make space for what the Spirit is doing in their lives, and what God wants to do with them. So yeah, I don't know. It felt good. I think we did. I think it was.
That's so cool. I really like that idea. That I guess that kind of speaks to what you were just saying about this kind of pastoral presence. Just having a sort of space where people can chill out and deal with that burnout. I guess, like, we asked you this on the last podcast as well, but about the connection between spiritual life and spiritual care, I guess, and political activity. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that connection at the retreat as well, because you guys got into some direct action stuff, or like, I know that you showed up at the a May Day rally nearby. So how did those things kind of interplay, like having a space where people can come together and meet and chill out, and then also a space where people can kind of think politically about how to channel some of those energies or something like that?
Yeah. Well, this year Philadelphia was a little like, last year there was like a teacher strike on May Day, so there was so many people who came out to the May Day march, like thousands. But this year it was kind of a last minute thing, and I actually got put on the committee for the planning committee for the May Day event, and it was super last minute, but like it still turned out to be a thing, and it was a super small group. It was basically like some reps from different like leftist orgs here in Philly, but it was mostly just the IWW, honestly. But we came out, and we came out for the rally, the May Day rally at City Hall, and we just kind of were determined to have an occupying presence at City Hall all day long. And because there was like different demonstrations all over Philadelphia, and we just kind of wanted to be present to it. And like, I mean, I'm talking about Friendly Fire just wanted to be present to these demonstrations, and a lot of them ended up at City Hall. Like, the marches would end there. And yeah, so we were there, we were present, but like our thing was just like feeding people, you know, feeding all those who were at the rally. We made like peanut butter jelly sandwiches and had water bottles and had bags of chips and stuff. And Yeah, it was really interesting too, though, because it was like seeing people from my like world of like organizing and stuff, and like here in Philly, merging with these like weirdo Christian like anarchists and leftists, and they were like talking about God and stuff, and like these huge group discussions, and like I don't know, it was kind of cute to watch. But that being said, it wasn't like we did like anything like a wild direct action where like I don't, or like any kind of like liturgical direct action or anything like that. But there was definitely like there was something very powerful to me that we could at least offer like something materially at that time and have a supporting role to the events that were going on.
That's really cool. Well, did you guys get any like really strong reactions to being a bunch of radical Christians at a May Day event? Was there anybody that was like not pleased that you were there, or extremely pleased that you were there? How did that go? How did those big conversations shape out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was fine. I mean, like we were well received. We actually marched to the demonstration, to the rally, and we were, you know, chanting eat the rich, feed the poor, and with our like banners and stuff, and our banner said like all cops are apostates, and like as we were coming in, like everyone started cheering, and we were like a third of the demonstration because there was like about 30 of us, so we added a bunch more bodies, and so like they were just happy we were there. But then like, you know, it was good, but it was mostly like people who were passing us by and stuff, so, like, you know, like liberals on the street and stuff who had stuff to say, especially about our banners. But like other than that, there's nothing really too negative. It was yeah, like I said, it was kind of cool how harmonious this like convergence of these worlds were.
Can we talk a little bit more about that banner, which is very cool, the all cops are apostates banner? Like maybe first we could ask you like what's sort of the theology or idea behind a banner like that? And secondly, I'm very curious to hear more about what liberals on the street said about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward, Dean. But yeah, no, they're traitors of the faith, of the Christian faith. Cops. I mean, it's an evil, corrupt system. They're tools of empire, and they're apostates. So it was like, I don't know, it kind of felt like, you know, one of those like prophetic judgments from like the Old Testament. There was something to it, like, and it was kind of sweet too, because like the people who are holding these banners, like the cutest people, like we're all so cute, like everyone was so like sweet and kind, and then they had this like militant banner and like bandanas on their faces, so it was interesting. And there was one guy that I talked to actually who just, his issue, he was like, I went and I met with the Zapatistas. I've been all over the world and I've seen revolutionary work, and this is just like bad rhetoric. It's not helpful, this and that. So it was like that sort of thing. And his whole thing was that like not all cops are bad and that sort of thing. So that's fine. You know, like we talked for a bit, and I think we kind of agreed to disagree, but also like basically agreed on like important things. But it was just more like of a rhetoric issue, and just not thinking it was like helpful agitation. And like I definitely see where he's coming from, but like also cops are bad.
Right. Yeah, that's funny. Because it seems pretty clear to me. I mean, you guys are making it's a rhetoric that makes like a sweeping statement about sort of the role of police as protectors of private property in a society. I don't think it's actually all that surprising for someone to say, especially from the left in a Christian position. I guess to me it is kind of funny because it's like there's sort of an irony to it, in the sense that like apostasy is usually the kind of judgment that like large hierarchical organizations can make about people, but like here you guys are, people who are probably eschewing a lot of hierarchy but still making the claim. And I think there's something interesting and funny and playful about that. So I don't know, to me it's good rhetoric. So that guy, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like too it's a really neat way to tap into those Quaker themes that inform at least a lot of you who are involved in the Friendly Fire collective. carrying on themes of abolition, and not just prison abolition, but police abolition, I guess. Were those kinds of like discussions that you guys were having at the retreat? Like, how did people start connecting their own particular Christian traditions to sort of leftist action, or like comparing notes? I guess I feel like one of the strongest things about the collective is that it's really ecumenical in like both political and ecclesial senses. Like, there's a lot of different kinds of Christians and also different kinds of leftists. So how did people kind of reach into their own traditions and maybe make some of those cross-pollinated ideas fit together?
Yeah, well, there were a number of people who were Quaker, and like I mentioned in the last episode, like Quakers have a rich history, especially like the first generation of Quakers have a rich history of like holy foolishness and kind of like just kind of like liturgical direct action type of stuff, where they, and I mentioned this as well, but like kind of like shamelessly going into the public like naked and pronouncing judgment on the world, and and like going into churches and just like preaching over pastors about like how they're tools of empire, basically. And there is something like about the Quaker faith that is very confrontational. I mean, you may not see that now because, I mean, especially like unprogrammed Quakers just tend to be like passive liberals, but yeah, it is something that is like, it's what drew me to Quakerism. At least that was a major aspect of it that drew me to Quakerism. And so like, yeah, I think for a number of us that like testimony rings true to a lot of us, and this was how we felt like we were being faithful to our tradition. And for other people, like definitely, I'm trying to think of how other people would have done that, because I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I don't know. I think especially with like there were a number of folks who come from more like Pentecostal and charismatic backgrounds. Maybe they're not involved in that anymore, but it was definitely a presence that was felt, and a tradition that was present, and that kind of like the whole idea of like, I don't know, shamelessly loving God, like, which is like very charismatic, and having that like very, I don't know, that kind of extravagant devotion. I feel like that very, like, just like how people, like, we marched in that street with that banner, it felt like this is like a Pentecostal praxis. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool that you even would describe it as a Pentecostal praxis, because there's something like, from the sounds of things, it's like you guys are putting your actual sort of faith practices to use in more of a political arena, like marching down the streets and like chanting is like, it is very Pentecostal. Or even the way you describe being at City Hall the whole day, you want to sort of maintain presence in the sense that, like, I don't know, that's what Quakers are really good at doing, is showing up and like being in a place, sort of in an unprogrammatic way, or even just feeding people, right? These are all sort of like Christian things that you guys are doing that you're putting to use in a more radical way, and that's definitely something that I think more Christians should do and take away from this. Christianity can do things more than it does now. Yeah,
and I definitely like something that like Matt Dean, you mentioned earlier, was that just like that we kind of like articulated our mission in a way that doesn't build us towards like a Christian superiority thing. And I think that something that like a phrase that we kind of like keep saying and that keeps coming up is just like we're, doulas are the end times. And I really like that idea, and it's something I've been kind of like thinking about a lot. And it's just like this whole idea of like, I don't know, how like Marx says that like force is like the midwife of an old society pregnant with a new society, and like, I don't know, Jesus says that like the violent will take, or like the forceful will take and seize the kingdom. And so there's something about that that feels like very true to me about like creating a movement of like force, a militant movement, because I feel like that is something that's actually like super inherent in our tradition, just like in the biblical narrative and the Christian narrative of, you know, like Jesus just going into the temple and just like fucking shit up and like that sort of thing. But at the same time, like I wouldn't say like I think the church is supposed to be the midwife. I think actually the church is supposed to be the doula, because like a midwife is like the healthcare provider, right? But as a doula, they're kind of having they're like the additional services. They're like providing extra care. And that's kind of how I see what we want to build through Friendly Fire, is building like an accompanying presence to the left, to accompanying presence to the movement of justice that's like ushering in apocalypse. Yeah.
Dang. My partner was a doula for a little while, and that is the coolest metaphor that I've ever heard as a result of that experience. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think what else is really neat about just how you're talking about it now is there's a really strong and clear sense that the kinds of things that you guys are doing and experimenting with and thinking about and talking about and praying about, like those things emerge from I guess, like from a real authentic desire to be a Christian person in the world. And I mean, a lot of times Christian leftists get accused of like just packaging leftist ideas in a Christian like wrapping and then just kind of sending it out and being like, yeah, we're just, you know, closeted Marxists or whatever. And Christian leftists are always trying to like fight that and say there's something more, something like deeper and more honest, I think, going on. And the way that you're talking about it here, it just feels like a good way of articulating that like, well, there's a kind of Christian role to play in this, but this isn't like, like it both is a Christian thing and not a Christian thing, insofar as Christianity shouldn't kind of mark off like the true revolution from like the fake one or like the non-Christian one. I think that's like a really important balance to strike. And I don't know. I'm just, that doula metaphor is something that's really like turning a lot of gears in my head right now.
Yeah, and like I will say, like, I don't think like revolution will literally bring the kingdom of God on earth. Like, I don't think that's what Revelation is talking about. But I do think like revolutionary work and revolution, like it's creating a world where it's easier to be a good person, right? So it's clearing the space for the kingdom to like manifest and for the kingdom to come to earth. And so that's like, it's like contemplative spirituality in that way, where it's like you're clearing space within yourself for God and for God to move in your life and to provide a sanctified imagination for you. And so like in that sense, like, yeah, I don't think like, I don't know, I don't think revolution is like my religion, but I definitely see it like, I don't know, I definitely see this work as important to where we are in this stage and in this time in history as a Christian.
Dang, sorry, man. I'm thinking. You said the word sanctified imagination. It's like echoing my head. Just trying to think through that one for a minute. That's such a cool term. Usually, I mean, when Dean and I talk,
I got it from Bethel Church.
Oh no way, really?
I got it from, I think, Bill Johnson from Bethel Church.
Holy crap!
There you go.
Well,
I'm using the enemy's tools.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in this context, it's like it means something a little bit different, or it makes me feel a little bit different. Because yeah, I mean, if I went to any more conservative church and I heard that, I'd be like, I don't know, who knows what that means. But in this context, it makes me think a little bit differently. A sanctified imagination, especially when it comes to revolutionary movements, means something entirely different contextually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a cool term. I'll have to keep thinking about that one along these lines. Well, anyways, you guys had this retreat and you went out to May Day together and had this kind of really formative moment, and now you guys are having larger conversations about what it means to be a collective and how you're going to work together. Well, so did these events like inspire you to think up any more wild projects for the future? Is there going to be another retreat? Are you guys going to march together again? What is to come?
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, honestly, post-retreat, my brain has been like off. I have been working a disgusting amount, but like we just met yesterday, and like It was actually, and I'll say this, like, I'm here in Philadelphia. A couple of people came from Philadelphia to this retreat, and like we have decided to commit to kind of having a lay community together, where we will be worshiping together and doing the thing of actions and like being present to the left, being present to the work that needs to be done. But like yesterday, we talked about how right now, like our focus is supporting like among Friendly Fire as a whole, as a network. It's kind of like a ministerial support network, like all these people were all over the place. Some people are just the only Friendly Fire people in their cities, and they're not like going to start we're not trying to build a house church movement or anything like that, but we just kind of want to support each other in the work that we're doing where we are, and help each other be a pastoral presence, and be pastors to one another. So that's like what like our immediate thing is. We're just like focused on that right now, but like, yes, we're going to keep going with our newsletter. We want to have another retreat, and we want to like create more like agitprop and like and do more actions together, and but also like we've been talking about like what does like being a pastoral presence mean like during like an action. And that's something that I was kind of thinking about post like Charlottesville, is like what does spiritual care look like in that space? Because it's definitely needed. Like, after everything happened, or even during, like it's definitely like needed. People are being traumatized. But what does that look like? And I would like to like kind of figure that out. And I think we've been talking about that a bit, is like being like offering spiritual care in those moments of not just crisis, but just intense moments during demonstrations and during protests and these sorts of things. And so like we're definitely just starting to have conversations on what we want to do, but ultimately it's not like we're like this, like, I don't know, we're all over the place, and we can't do as much as we want to together, because it's just like not feasible. Like we do plan on doing more, but right now we're just like kind of focusing on building capacity with each other. But more is to come, don't get me wrong. And we're definitely going to have another retreat next year. And I would love for like, I don't know, like a lot of people couldn't make it because they live across the country and they can't take that much time off work for like, especially with the travel time and all that. I would love there to be like local things, even if it's just a group of 10 people, just to like have a weekend of like prayer and like being with each other in the midst of just like the chaos of organizing right now. So that'd be cool.
That would be really cool.
That would be cool. Maybe we could talk a little bit about kind of what it means to be a Christian person in a place like the United States right now, or Canada, but I guess like the United States specifically. I mean, it's like every other week there are like two articles that I see a lot that keep getting rewritten. One is about how like white evangelicals keep liking Donald Trump more and more, which is pretty absurd and like gross. And the other one is that the religious left is here, but what they mean by the religious left is like, I don't know, like Cory Booker, like a Democratic, congressperson showing up at church, or like Elizabeth Warren, like hanging out with a bunch of pastors. So, like, what does it mean to be a religious, or more specifically, a Christian kind of revolutionary leftist group in that kind of climate? Like one where people don't really have, like, I guess I wouldn't say like a sanctified imagination. They have like barely any imagination at all when it comes to like how Christianity could look different. What are maybe like the challenges and kind of opportunities that you see in that kind of climate?
Yeah, I don't know, but I definitely think having a greater imagination for the sake of the church and for the sake of the left is important. And like for me, that's what like I felt was really cool about this retreat, was that, like you said, like it was very ecumenical and like multi-tendency, and that like created a space where we could like think of revolutionary work in a broader, more dynamic way, and we could also think of our faith as in a more dynamic way. And I think that'd be cool if we could help, like, even if we're just even if that's like one thing that we're doing is like creating a multi-tendency space where we're like talking about these things, like with Marxist Leninists, with Trots, and with like, you know, anarcho-communists and all that stuff. That'd be cool. I would like to like broaden that imagination, but like really, like for me, like I would like to broaden a theological understanding of this, and like a theological understanding of like justice and the church and revolution. And like, I don't know, for me, one thing, like at least this is what I feel called to. Like I think there are people who are definitely called to like be salters and churches, and that's something we talked about at the retreat, like people to, especially like it's very possible in Quaker meetings, honestly, that really small Quaker meetings where they have that egalitarian model to like, you know, kind of push people to the left and also like have a radical presence. Like that's such a real thing that people can be doing and should be doing if you're in church. But I feel that there are a number of us who are at that retreat that have like a different sense of calling, where it's actually like having a separateness from the church and cultivating a separate like apocalyptic Christian culture, a revolutionary Christian culture that models church and models what doing church and being the church in a very different way, in a way that is like honestly very foreign, but at the same time using these elements in the language in a way that they like kind of know we're right, like, and are convicted by that, and are convicted by like, you know, like you read Acts 2, but hey, we're actually doing it, and like actually God's on our side, but yeah, I don't know, that's just like one thing, I guess, is just like, yeah, being separate, at least for me.
Yeah, can you tell us a little more about that separateness? Why is that important to you?
I guess for me, it's just like, it's kind of like the whole reformism thing. We could keep on trying to like work in these institutions and try to bend them towards justice, and I think there's definitely something to it, and it depends on like what your denomination is, what like the powers that be, how that all works. But personally, like I don't have the energy for that, and I just like really want to do the work and I really want to be in the church as like the church that like Jesus was talking about, and the church that the apostles experienced, and like I can't wait personally to have mutual aid. I need it now, you know. I need to experience that now. I need a fellowship that actually like I feel committed to, and like I could be confident that these people are willing to like lay their lives down for me, and I could feel confident that I would do the same for them. So for me, that's why it's important. I'm like, you know, the barrier of like whiteness and kind of, and the, you know, bourgeois values in Quakerism, even if they're kind of the better, you know, religious people, as some people would say or think, or as they would think, it's even more of a barrier. Like it's like the fact that they're liberal and like confident in their liberalness is like feels like even stronger of a barrier towards pushing them towards the left and towards doing important work and being abolitionists again, because they were abolitionists, you know, during, you know, like in the 1840s, 1850s or whatever. Like they're confident in that. That's their identity, but they're not doing that now, but they're resting on this like legacy. And yeah, I don't know, like you know, we could keep trying to reform things, but meanwhile, like I'm poor. So, and meanwhile, like other like people are struggling, and so like I need that apostolic church now.
Yeah. There's there are a bunch of very cool slogans that appear on Friendly Fire stuff, like the newsletter and blog and all that kind of thing. But one that I always kind of one that warms my heart, I guess, is the one that says another church is possible. I really love that because it's a nice play on the sort of leftist slogan, right? Another world is possible, but it's cool to imagine another church being possible. One thing that Matt and I kind of found in our research on Christians for Socialism was a similar sort of impulse. They called it like a people's church, and so they had this stuff called like the Seeds of the People's Church. Trying to imagine that, and I think that's really cool because a lot of Christian leftists also, or people who identify that way, they're like very interested in like some leftist political issues, but they have no real concern for like changing their own Christian communities, or I guess challenging it. Like a lot of people get really defensive about you can be a Marxist, but like you should also be like extremely orthodox as like a Catholic or something. At least those are the people I talk to. And I find that so frustrating and troubling because it kind of assumes this weird Christian purity. And I think that's what's really important about Friendly Fire is like, yeah, like another church is possible. And in fact, like not only is it possible, but like you're doing it. So another church kind of already exists in a way.
Yeah, Hye Sung, I think that's so cool too because so you mentioned like churches that sort of like rest on the legacy of being abolitionists in the 1800s or whatever, and that's so funny because that is exactly what my church does. Like the Free Methodist Church, they were abolitionists in the 1800s, and like they're still sort of riding that vibe out, and that's like kind of their cred to be about justice. However, it's like since then people are the Free Methodist Church basically just asks people to like be really patient. You're the greatest contradiction to that of not being patient, of wanting it now is such a good and powerful desire, I think, to have.
Yeah, and again, like I definitely think there ought to be people, and I'm thankful for those people who remain in their churches and are like pushing their church and are pushing even like their whole denominations. It's just that things are, people need stuff now. Yeah. So like, yeah, like I think that's important though. Like, I don't want to deny that, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, well, maybe could we talk a little bit about how Friendly Fire sort of works, like if people wanted to get involved? Like, so say someone listens to this episode and they're like, wow, another church is possible, that's what I want. How do they sort of, I guess, contribute to the stuff that y'all are doing? And I guess not just theoretically, but also materially. Like, you guys were fundraising, and I think still are, right, for some of the costs of the retreat. So yeah, I mean, like, what is helpful for building the kind of network that you guys are imagining?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like it'd be cool. Any donation helps. Like, we don't have too much left to raise, but a couple $100 more. But like, more importantly, like, I mean, like, I don't know what we have to offer to like pull people in. Like, I don't know how we can like plug them in, but like, if you just send an email to friendlyfireinfo@protonmail.com, like at least we can like talk, and like at least I could figure out if someone's in your area, and like and like and maybe you can like help. Like, honestly, like I would like our newsletter to be a regular thing and a way to create like agitation and like propaganda. Like, that'd be awesome. So yeah, I mean, we can figure it out. Just email us. But yeah.
Cool. So we have this like stock question that we kind of ask everyone at the end of our interviews now. Sometimes we remember and sometimes we don't, and this time I did. So I'm going to put it to you. What do you think that Christians should know about leftists? And what do you think that leftists should know about Christians?
God, I didn't think you'd ask this again, because last time I just kind of like spat something out, and I'm about to do it again. I guess for Christians, I guess for Christians is that like, yeah, another church is possible. I like that. I like that you brought that up. Thanks. But yeah, like there's definitely like the things that people are hungering for, like whether that be revival or whether that be Pentecost, the Book of Acts, a church of real discipleship, like that's something that's happening and totally can happen in a very real and material way, but it's probably not going to happen at Bethel Church. It's probably not going to happen at IHOP KC, but it is happening, and it's actually like a material thing, and then it's like a real movement that's actually creating that kingdom that people are praying for. So yeah, like, I don't know, it's possible and it's happening, and you're totally invited, and I want you to be involved. We need everyone. And for leftists, about the church, you said?
Yeah, or Christianity, whatever you want, however you want to go about it.
Yeah, that's a hard question for me, because it's like when people don't like the church or don't want to engage with Christianity, it's hard to be like, but give us a chance. Like forget about empire, like forget about colonization, imperialism, But like at the same time, also the reality is that most of the church globally have been stomped on by imperialism, and are also like in the same struggle, and a lot of oppressed people have found value in this gospel narrative for a reason, and it's not just because, like, I don't know, today I saw someone's status and it was like the worst hot take about how religion, it was created by the bourgeoisie to make us obedient to masters. It was just like, I mean, definitely, like, the gospel has been like co-opted and stuff. It's just a stupid hot take, and but the reality is, it's like it doesn't have to be that way, and it hasn't always been that way, and it's continually not been that way. Maybe that hasn't been the majority, but it has fed some real revolutionaries to doing amazing and powerful work, and oppressed people. It's led oppressed people towards a vision of liberation, and there's a reason for that. Yeah.
That's a good answer. Well, two good answers.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Hye Sung, for coming on the show again. It's really fun always to hear about what you're up to, and really inspiring. And I mean, we always are following the newsletter and hearing about what's going on, and there's always something. So I hope that work lets up for you soon. You can get back to all that troublemaking.
Thank you. Thanks again for inviting me on the show. It's always great to talk to you guys.
Thanks for listening to Magnificast. If you like what you heard, then please support us on Patreon, follow us on Twitter, get into our iTunes reviews and leave us a good comment, and maybe follow us on Facebook too. I don't know, we're on all those platforms. Why wouldn't you be? Gotta create that good value for those giant social media corporations.
We're not on Instagram though, so
yeah,
got that going for us.
Yeah, just take our word for it. We eat some pretty good food, but we don't post any pictures of it there. Cool. Yeah, also, if you liked what you heard about Hye Sung and the Friendly Fire Collective, you can kind of check out what they're at and what they're doing. HyeSungFrancis.com is Hye Sung's blog. Get at it. TheFriendlyFireCollective.wordpress.com is the Friendly Fire Collective WordPress. It has all their updates about what they're doing. Lots of cool pictures from the retreat that we talked about in this episode. Lots of good blog posts and good things to think about, and you can also subscribe to their newsletter there, so I definitely suggest doing that. Among all of those other things, you should also give a hand to the Friendly Fire Collective at raising a little bit more money to pay for the sort of residual stuff after the retreat is over. They'll need a little bit more money, so if you could give them a hand, that would be awesome. You can find it at gofundme.com/friendly-fires/retreat. We'll put it in the show notes because it's hard to say. Anyways, they only need a little bit more left, so just get out there and help some good Christian comrades out. As usual, the intro music is from Amoria, and the outro music is from Theological Spoon. So see you next time.
Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord. Jackson, keep your hoods up. Keep your hoods up and you stay up late. In Jackson, you keep your hoods up.